What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Wednesday, November 29th edition of the NBA Lineup Generator video. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. We have 7 NBA games tonight. Not a lot of value, so probably going to see some ugly stuff in this video. But we're going to walk through how the slates are shaking up on both DraftKings and FanDuel using the Lineup Generator as always. If you're not familiar with this tool, we will get into it more, and I'll explain it to you as we go through the video. But in general, it is the least expensive way, the most cost-effective way to access our player projections, our models, and the tool is set up, designed to use our projections and our models on the back end, and then present you with lineups that we project to be profitable in the long run. You can select from those lineups to play in your contests. You also have a couple of customization options as well that I will show you as we go through the video. Now, starting on the DraftKings side, the first option you have is the ability to choose the types of lineups that you want to see, whether that's all of the lineups, or all types of lineups, chalky lineups, balanced lineups, contrarian lineups, whatever best fits your goal and the contest that you're playing. For this video, I'm going to choose contrarian. The next option you have is to lock a player in. I don't recommend doing this if you're playing 20 lineups or a bunch, a lot of lineups. But if you're playing one lineup and you know you want Jaren Jackson Jr., you may as well save yourself some time and make sure that every lineup that you see has Jaren Jackson Jr. in it. But for this video, I'm going to skip that. Then we get to the next page where you just start being presented with lineups. You can see how much salary it uses, its projected fantasy points, and projected ownership. And then pretty importantly, down here at the bottom, we have a sliding scale where you can see how the lineup grades out in both projection and ownership compared to alternatives. That's what's really important. Sometimes people will ask, what's a good fantasy point projection? What's a good ownership projection? And the answer is it all depends, because it depends on the slate and a bunch of other factors. There's no good or bad fantasy point projection or ownership projection. It's how they compare to the alternatives. So you're able to see that down here at the bottom. And then you can just see for each player their salary, position, fantasy points, ownership throughout the lineup. And then over here on the right-hand side is one of those customization options I was referring to. Let's say you look at this lineup and you're really happy with it, but you don't like Terrence Mann, which is completely reasonable. You can click the arrows over here. You see that you used your entire salary. You see that Mann is $4,500. So you just scroll down and you're going to be able to see every forward that is $4,500 or less and their fantasy projection and ownership. And you can decide who you like more, or if you wanted to make a couple of swaps, you can swap down from somebody else in the lineup and then swap up from Mann. Whatever works for you, you do have that ability. And then finally, you just save it if you like it, you discard it if you don't. If you discard it, you will get another lineup that we project to be profitable long term. And this just keeps going until you have however many lineups you need. For this video, I'm going to just save the first 20 and get us to the next screen, which is where we can see how our lineups look and the player exposures that we have. Over here on the right-hand side, you can see that we're getting Nicholas Batum the most at 45%. As I said at the top, value on this slate is disgusting. And so that's why somebody like Batum is showing up so much. He is projected for 26% ownership. It's not like we're going crazy getting to him. Patrick Beverley might be going a little bit crazy on that one, but he's still projected for 12% ownership. Keontae George, 6,100. We're getting 40% of him. We're getting to Cam Reddish 40% of the time at 4,700. Again, he is questionable to play tonight. We don't know if he'll start. We don't know how many minutes he will play. But right now we have him projected in and to start, and that's getting him in quite a bit of lineups. Then we start getting into some real players here with Kyle Kuzma at 35%, Santi Aldama, Bismack Biyombo both at 30%, along with Jakob Poeltl and Derrick Rose. Paolo Banchero, Kawhi Leonard at 25%, Jalen Suggs at 20%. So nothing too crazy here, but on slates like this, maybe you pick 20 lineups, and obviously when you are selecting your lineups, it's very difficult to mentally pay attention to how much of everybody you have. So it's not unusual to get your 20 lineups and then you get to this screen and you're just like, no, I don't want 40% Patrick Beverley. I want 25. You can very quickly fix that by first selecting his name over here on the right-hand side. It's going to highlight all of your Patrick Beverley lineups. And then you can go in and either manually change him like I showed you before with Terrence Mann, or you can just find the lineups you like the least, however you want to choose that, and discard a few of them. So I just discarded these 3 that don't project quite as well as the rest. So now you have 17 lineups. You just go back to get more lineups, and you're back on the previous screen. We're going to discard Patrick Beverley lineups and save ones that do not have Patrick Beverley, and that will get us down to the 25% Patrick Beverley that or sorry, 30%. I guess I miscounted one, but now got us down to 30% Beverly. Now we do have 55% Batum. So if you wanted to get back to your 40, 45%, you would just repeat that. And eventually you're going to have 20 lineups that project to be profitable, and you can have exposures that you're comfortable with and easily can see those over there. And then over here, we can take a look at what some of these lineups look like. This top one looks like it projects pretty well at 249 fantasy points, 126% ownership. We have Dennis Schroeder and Cole Anthony at the top, 6,400 for Schroeder, 6,700 for Anthony, 12 to 20% ownership on those two. Santi Aldama at small forward, pulling 35% ownership right now at 6,400. As an aside, make sure he's in the starting lineup tonight. Obviously, you should be checking starting lineups whenever they come out, but Aldama did not start the second half last game. David Roddy started in his place, so that is something that could change for Aldama that we're not currently projecting for. We're getting to 4% John Collins, so that's a nice contrarian play there. $5,800 Daniel Gafford as another contrarian option at 7%. We have Patrick Beverly, who, again, it's disgusting. Same with Nick Batum, but they're cheap. They open up some other stuff. And then we're getting to a 10% owned Anthony Davis at 9,800. He looks very good tonight against the Pistons. Now we're going to take a look at the same thing on FanDuel. But first, if you are interested in using this tool for yourself, using it up until lock, being able to use the most updated projections, the most updated ownership, because obviously the stuff I'm talking about right now at 2:30 in the afternoon is going to be different by lock. You can sign up using the link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, or the link below if you're watching on Twitter. Sign up. It's $14.95 a month. We created this tool for people that are playing lower stakes, lower volume, single entry, 3 max, 20 max, whatever it may be. It's very important that the tools you're subscribing to be at a price point that you're not putting yourself in such a big hole that no matter how good the tools are and no matter how good you are, you can't dig your way out of it. So we created this. It's $14.95 a week. It is a very easy price point for most people, and it's not going to bury you to where you can't turn a profit in any given month because of the price point. So very, very useful tool, very cost-effective way to get access to our data. And you can sign up using the link below. Now we're going to look on FanDuel, doing the same thing, going to contrarian lineups, not locking anybody in, and then just grabbing the first 20 that we get to, and we can see how things look different compared to DraftKings. Generally, pricing is a little bit softer on FanDuel, so maybe we won't have quite as much disgusting value. I'm discarding this last lineup because I accidentally chose 21. But once again, getting to a bunch of Batum, getting to a bunch of Derrick Rose at 4,100. Neither of those inspire much confidence, but then we get into some real players. Desmond Bane at 8,300, 40% owned, looks very good. Anthony Davis with power forward eligibility, whereas he's only a center on DraftKings, getting a lot of him. Kuzma, Leonard, Banchero, Anthony, the Orlando guys taking on the Wizards, which is fantastic. Santi Aldama, again, I mentioned, make sure he's starting, but he's a little bit cheaper on FanDuel than he was on DraftKings. Kevin Huerter at 5K stands out here, whereas he didn't on DraftKings. We're getting to 30% Keontae George and Dylan Brooks. So all of this looks pretty good. Certainly if you wanted to cut back some Batum and Rose and replace that with some other questionable value pieces, you could do so the same way I showed you on DraftKings. And now taking a quick look at if any of these lineups look interesting. This second one here projects for 292 fantasy points. So we are giving up a little bit in the way of projection, like 5 to 7 points, it looks like, but only projected for 142% ownership. So a little bit more contrarian. We're getting to a $6,300 D'Angelo Russell and a 6K D'Anthony Melton, 16 and 23% ownership respectively there. Keontae George at shooting guard, 5,700 looks good. Shooting guard, $4,900 Dylan Brooks looks as good as Dylan Brooks can look. Not a very appealing matchup against Denver. Slow-paced game, solid defense, at least assuming Denver has most of their main pieces, but he's only getting 10% ownership. Gallo at 4,100, giving you around 18 minutes for the Wizards. He's only 4% owned, so that helps this lineup be more contrarian as well. Then we're getting to Nick Batum, which we've talked about a lot. Kyle Kuzma, Paolo Banchero, they both look good, particularly Banchero, 44% owned, but only 7,700, just kind of a broken price tag there. And then one of my favorite ways to be contrarian is playing the best player on the slate. It's very tough to get to Jokic. He is also questionable, but it's very tough to get to him because of the lack of value and the fact that opportunity cost at center is so high. But as a result, he's only projected for 3% ownership. This is someone that certainly is capable of going for 80 plus fantasy points and just being somebody you need to have. So it's always fun when you can get to them as a contrarian piece. So that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for checking it out. Don't forget to check out or to sign up through the link below. $14.95 per week gets you access to this tool. You can use it for your lineups and have the most up-to-date projections and ownership projections. Good luck on your lineups, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.